Hey buddy, subscribe. What's going on everyone? I'm here to showcase my Exosister deck from YCS Columbus Genesys format in which I finished 33rd place. That's right, 33rd. Can I see you as my crush? This is also my big time base reveal for all 3 of my subscribers, which 2 of them already know what my face looks like. I know 33rd place isn't a crazy achievement, especially in a tournament setting of approximately 200 players. I think there may have been a little bit less than that. A lot of other players in the top 32 shared a similar record to me as well, so I felt that the profile was somewhat warranted at least. But nevertheless, I wanted to use this as a personal milestone that I can build and improve upon in the future. Also, I wanted to say that I loved the camaraderie throughout the tournament. This is a total vibes-based format, and I am all for it. The deck building choices that I saw some people choose were incredible. A couple of shout-outs before we kick things off. I got 3 in particular. I've got shout-out to New Jersey, shout-out to Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brun's him, by the way. And number 3 is for Mr. Beast, because maybe he'll give me $1 million. Alright, deck profile. Before we kick things off, I want to show off this beautiful playmat that I received for placing 33rd at the event. Can't get any better than this. For this deck profile, I'm not going to explain anything that's standard. A couple things require explanations in my deck choices in my non-engine, but without further ado, let's get straight into the deck profile. Kicking things off, we have 3 copies of Mommy Martha. We have 3 copies of Ellis. 2 copies of Exosister Stella. Historically, we've only played 1. The reason we're playing 2 is because it's a great extender in and of itself, being able to special summon another name from your hand. You can also use Exosister Betrayal to target an Ellis you control to then additionally normal summon the Stella. Also, if we open Irene, summoning Sophia and Irene off Vadis is impossible, therefore we can summon the Stella and another Ellis from deck, off the Vadis. 2 Sophia, the reason being if we can get on the field to draw a card to see more of that non-engine, that's great. We also want to keep 1 in the deck to special summon off Vadis alongside Irene. The 1 Irene, the reason why is because it's required off Vadis to summon Sophia and Irene together. Also, you could technically recycle a card from your hand to the bottom of the deck to then draw an additional card to, again, see more of that non-engine. 3 copies of Ichiki Sarahime at 5 points apiece. The big debate when deck building is either playing the 3 Hime or the 3 packs in my opinion. I opted to go the route with the 3 Hime because I feel that this card is just such a strong extender and I'm able to see enough of my Exosister engine that I preferred having the 3rd copy of the Hime. 1 copy of Aratama. The reason we play 1 is because if I'm able to use the Hime effect to normal summon it, I can grab the Aratama from deck, summon the Aratama, and then grab Sakitama to either summon it or use it as discard fodder for Betrayal. Having more than 1 in the deck just gets a little too clunky, so I went with 1. Just 2 Sakitama. When deck building, I was thinking about playing a 3rd, I opted for 2. Most of the time I found myself pitching this off Betrayal. But if you have 2 Sakitama in hand, it's still a great normal summon and then additional normal to get your plays going. With 3 monsters left, I'm sure you guessed it, we have 3 copies of Shifter at 10 points apiece. This card puts this deck on another level in my opinion, especially because you can add it back off of Carmel and continuously loop it if needed. I don't foresee this card living much longer after this event, and that is probably for the best. For the spells and traps, we have 3 Betrayal, 2 copies of packs. Again, we prioritize those 5 points on Hime instead of the packs. 3 copies of 7 Tachyon. This card searches every monster in our deck outside of Aratama and Dimension Shifter. 1 7th Ascension to help us boost our consistency by adding that Tachyon to hand. Now for the fun non-engine choices that need a little bit more explaining. We have 3 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon. The reason being is most decks put up at least 1 back row, 1 face-up spell, 1 face-up trap, or a field spell. First thing that comes to mind is the Mimigol field spell that kind of prevents you from playing the game, so I felt that this was a fair 1-for-1 trade. You could also pitch it off Betrayal if you don't need it, or put it back with 7 Tachyon. This card I was very indecisive on. It was either this or Final Bringer of the End Times. I'm very glad I ended up playing this card. It ended up winning me a couple of my games, especially my last match in particular. This card's also not once per turn. Doesn't force you to have a monster on field. Overall, really strong card. The skipping the draw phase doesn't really matter because if I'm going first, I'm able to search Martha off Caspitel, and I can keep going on the following turn if needed. Now for the traps, we have the 1 Vadis and the 1 Returnia. Typically I've opted to play more of one or the other, or 2 of each. Now with Carmel being able to set from essentially anywhere and also being able to search with Michaelis, this is all you need. And now for my favorite tech that never came up. We have Dimension Slice. This card is a very interesting trap card that can go first or second. You could probably tell by most of my deck choices, the non-engine that I'm running can do both. When a monster is special summoned to your side of the field, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls and banish that target. You can activate this trap card the turn it was set if that summon was an Xyz monster. The plan is to put 2 Exosister monsters on the field, set the trap card, make Michaelis activate the trap card targeting a monster they control, forcing an interaction, and then chaining Michaelis, targeting another card they control to force 2 interactions. That plan never once came up. I did get to set this going first a couple times, but we didn't make it far enough into the game before my opponent conceded to see this card live and in action. Now for our extra deck. The 1 Masquerade for 7 Tachyon. 2 Magnifica, 3 I think's too much, 2's the perfect number. 2 Carmel, this card is insane. It does everything the deck needed it to do before it came out. Also being able to loop Shifter is just the funniest thing ever. 2 Michaelis. 2 Caspitel. 1 Ossifeel, 1 Jabreen. I had thoughts about playing an additional Ossifeel. I opted for just the 1. The ability to lock card effects in the graveyard is just so strong. Jabreen, I felt like I used the boost effect to OTK more often than I did the quick effect to negate, but it's great extra insulation if your opponent doesn't know what it does. Now for the non-Exosister rank 4 monsters, we have 3 of them. Castel being the first, being able to remove monsters from the board that have effects that trigger when they leave the field is incredible. Next we have Light Dragon Agnister, which is great protection by detaching a material if anything would destroy a card you control. You can also pop a card using its effect. 1 copy of Eclipse Twins. This card is great at taking out multiple monsters. You can also crash it to special summon an Exosister monster from your graveyard and make its quick effect live. I wanted to make 1 note on a card that isn't in my extra deck, that is Evil Swarm Exciton Knight. I decided not to play that card because typically if you're making it going second, you can't kill your opponent anyways. By that point, if your opponent has any follow-up, the game is already over. Most good decks do have something for the crackback. I opted for rank 4s that help insulate my board when trying to take out my opponent on turn 3. And for my final tech choice against Cool Toon specifically, I played the 1 Valen, which is a rank 5 monster. With RS on the field, all my monsters' levels are increased by 1 because they are under that 1700 attack point threshold. The idea was to make the Valen target the Loudness Ward to Book a Moon it. If the RS negates it, I can crash the Valen into RS and then target the Cool Toon Synchro in the back row to force it out. I thought it was a neat interaction. It didn't come up, unfortunately. I only played Cool Toon once and I didn't get to see it. And now for the side deck. I tailored my deck and my side deck around what I thought was going to be the best deck, which was Red Dragon Archfiend. Turns out I was correct. We'll kick things off with 3 copies of Ra Sphere Mode. I was between this and a Kaiju because I thought Doom Z would get some representation. And then I noticed that Doom Z is playing multiple monsters on their end board to help insulate themselves from Kaijus, so I thought that the Ra Sphere Mode was a no-brainer. Against a deck like RDA that puts up multiple pops and negates, this was the perfect card to answer that. I didn't get a chance to use it against RDA, however it won me several other games. I know it cannot be targeted, however you can remove it from the field using Magnifica's effect. Next, at 1 point apiece, we have 3 copies of Dark Hole. This card not only forces activations, it clears monsters off my board as well, with decks like Dark Lord and Mimigul running around that put monsters on my field, which prevent me from using Martha's effect. This card I felt was almost needed. There were times where I would have liked to use it earlier, however I had to force interaction using cards like Michaelis first before using the Dark Hole, but again, very strong and well worth the 3 points. 3 copies of Hey Trunade. These 3 slots were for man specifically or any strange Eldritch variants. I did not get a chance to play against any of those. However, I felt like every player I sat next to was on that deck, so I believe that the 3 slots for the Hey Trunade were well worth it just in case. 3 copies of Blizzard. I felt that this was the going first MVP, being able to insulate your board against Illusion Gate. Also, if you know your opponent has a strong quick play spell, you can use the Blizzard on that said quick play spell. and you could save Carmel for Illusion Gate, especially post-side. Although I did expect Illusion Gate to be in a few main decks, so I always kept an eye out for it, but Blizzard and Carmel together really help put your board over the top. Finally, we have 3 copies of Mask of Restrict. 2 cards I was very afraid of going into this tournament were Kaijus and Lava Golems. Not only does this card stop those cards from hitting my board, it's great into decks like Monarch, Clown Crew, any Ritual Strategy, and the Genesys deck that plays the Archering card that tributes itself to Search, and can stop really annoying quick play spells like Enemy Controller. I got a lot of concerned faces when I flipped this card over, like what is that going to do against my deck, but again, I feel like that extra insulation was required. When it came to deck building, it was pretty straightforward, just a few non-engine choices that I felt were strong into the meta. We played a total of 99 points. We had 1 point remaining, and we're considering the Daigusto Emerald at 1 point to round it out at an even 100. We opted not to go that route, just didn't have enough room. I felt that the other rank 4s that I chose and the Valen were just much better options. Thanks for watching. Bye.